Yeah, stay prepared for the up and downs. Life is like a seesaw.
What's going on, guys? Just another critic here. Welcome back to the channel. We are continuing my Week 8 college football predictions with the Arizona State Sun Devils going to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Utes. Right now, ASU sitting at 17th in the country, Utes at 13th in the country, both teams 5-1 and 2-1 in conference. Essentially, right now, these are arguably two of the best teams, or the two best teams for the Pac12 South. Obviously, USC is still in that conversation. I understand USC sitting at 3-3, but they have played some pretty good competition. Like I said, Utah 2-1 in conference, Arizona State 2-1 in conference. Loser of this game arguably, puts them out of that conversation to represent for the South. But I think this game is going to be a really fun game to watch. Right now, Utah is a heavy favorite in this game with a 13.5 point spread in favor of Utah. For those of you betting on the game, both teams are 3-3 against the spread right now. And coming into this matchup, let's go ahead and cover the statistics, and then we'll get into my own thoughts. Right now, ASU putting up 25 points per game, allowing 17 points per game. Offense averaging 268 through the air and 134 on the ground. Defense allowing 262 through the air and 91 yards on the ground. Utah, on the other hand, averaging 34 points per game, allowing 13 points per game, and the offense looking very balanced, averaging 238 through the air and 228 on the ground. Defense right now allowing 218 through the air and 52 on the ground. And so the big discrepancy, as we can see right now, Utah is a very balanced offense. Statistically, you take a look at that. And defense right now, they're really not letting anybody find success on the ground and really through the air. 218 isn't too bad, from a college football perspective. But yeah, with that being said, the first thing I want to talk about in this matchup is elevation. This game is being played in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, Arizona State, I don't know when they're coming up. I don't know when they're going to be flying out to Salt Lake City for this matchup. But if they don't get acclimated, and even if they do get acclimated, coming in a few days early, it does make a difference. But the overall picture of, as far as the elevation goes, elevation is massive. I think the elevation in Utah is about 4,000 something. You can look it up. Let me pull it up right now. Utah elevation. It's, let's see, Salt Lake City, 4,226 feet. That's the elevation of Salt Lake City. And ASU, which I think is located in Tempe, Phoenix area, I already looked that up. It's around 1,200, 1,500, something like that. Go check for yourself. Don't quote me. But with that being said, elevation is going to play a massive part in this game. That's the first things first. Elevation. I don't know if you've ever had to go from a low elevation to a high elevation place and play sports. I have. It isn't easy to do. Not at all. It's hard to breathe. You start coughing more, especially after doing, a ton of sprints, or even if you're jogging. It's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to adjust to on the fly. Like I said, especially if they're flying in maybe a day or two before the game. It is something that's going to play a part in the outcome of this game. Now, the impact players in this game, we have Jaden Daniels, quarterback for ASU. He's played pretty well. I do like the kid. I think he's somebody to keep an eye on for future years. I don't think this ASU team will compete for the Pac-12 this year. They've done a good job so far, and I think they have a bright future ahead, but I don't think this is their year. He's had a decent season, but he has struggled versus better opponents. He hasn't been amazing. We take a look at some of his stats. one of the better defenses against Michigan State. He went 15 for 26, 57% completion percentage, 140 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Colorado, 24 for 39, 345 yards, 61% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, an interception. And then versus Cal, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions through the air. And then obviously they played Washington State, who isn't a very good defense. That's where he had a great game, 26 for 36, 366 yards, 72% completion percentage, and 3 touchdowns. And then on the other hand, we've got Tyler Huntley, right? He's done a phenomenal job. Right now, he's averaging 74% completion percentage, 791 yards, and 5 touchdowns versus AP top 25 opponents. Versus conference opponents. My mistake. But yeah, looking at Tyler Huntley, he's been efficient. He's done his part. He isn't the guy that is carrying this team right now because they have such a balanced attack, right? They have Zach Moss, who is an absolute beast, and he's hard to bring down. And at the same time, ASU has their own guy, right? And Eno Benjamin, and he's a beast himself. He's tough to bring down. He's shifty. Both of these teams are almost identical, right? They like to run the ball. They like to have a balanced attack and really just not put the game on their quarterback's shoulders because they have such a balanced attack. They have great running backs. I think Utah definitely has more depth in their running back stable. And right now I do give the edge to Utah for the running backs as well as at the quarterback position, because I do think Tyler Huntley's experience, and he's just been way more efficient. He doesn't turn the ball over. Both guys very athletic, but taking a look at these matchups, right? Arizona State has played pretty good defensively, right? But if you look at some of their games versus these passing attacks or some of the better passing teams, we take a look at their game versus Michigan State. Allowed 291 through the air. And Michigan State, if we look at them versus, other opponents on their schedule, they haven't really been amazing offensively. And then we go to Colorado. Colorado put up 337 on ASU's defense through the air, 140 on the ground. Kind of finding success in the pass game to open up the run game. I know it is typically the other way around, run, find success in the pass, but some teams do work it the opposite way, where they find success in the pass to open the run. Anyway, moving on. And then just this past week, they played against Washington State, who we know is a big-time air raid team. They went for 466 through the air versus Arizona State. And so Utah Utes, what they bring to the table, they bring a very balanced attack. Oregon State, they just went for 250 on through the air and on the ground. Washington State, they went for 334 through the air, nearly 200 on the ground. They're averaging 200 yards on the ground versus everybody. You look at NIU, 193, Idaho State. I understand those teams are garbage, all right? Let's just take a look at USC then. They went for 250 against USC, 192 versus Washington State, and then 256 versus Oregon State. I think this will obviously arguably be the best defense they've played so far. I do think USC has a great defense, but I do it's hard to give ASU the edge over USC's defense right now. I do think right now they're both playing right around the same level as far as defense goes. But right now, like I said, just take a look at some of the production that ASU has allowed against their defense. Michigan State, 113 on the ground, which isn't amazing, but when you compare that to what they're about to face versus Utah, which is a stable of phenomenal running backs, obviously led by Zach Moss, 113 versus Michigan State, 140 versus Colorado, and then 105 versus Cal. I think right now, as you guys hear me talking about this game, you can hear that I'm leaning towards Utah, and that isn't for no reason. That's because I think Utah is going to find a lot of success through the air, which essentially is going to open up their run game. And once you can find a balanced attack, it's really just hard to stop a team. Like I said, ASU hasn't done a very good job of defending the pass. They've struggled with that. And really the only good game they had against an opponent in defending the pass was against Cal. But we know Cal's offense really isn't anything to, be threatened by. And so coming into SLC, they're going to be flying into Salt Lake City. The elevation is going to play a big role in this game. And then I think the Utah running back stable is just going to be too much. I don't think ASU is going to be able to find success on the ground, so this game will be solely on the shoulders of Jaden Daniels. With the way that Utah's defense is, how they dominate at the line of scrimmage, like I said, they're allowing just 52 yards per game on the ground. If you look at some of the teams they've played, I understand NIU, Idaho State, so 67 yards, 36 yards. USC, 13 yards on the ground. Washington State, 61 yards on the ground. Oregon State, 48 yards on the ground. And really the only team that found success against them through the air was USC for 368. And that was really just a bunch of deep balls to some of their big play wide receivers. Washington State didn't even tear them up that bad. Washington State only went for 252, and that's one of the matchups we can put side by side and compare, because both of these teams have played Washington State. Utah smashed them 38-13, and Arizona State struggled with that pass attack 38-34 in a win. But like I said, coming into this matchup, I just don't think Arizona State is going to be able to have a balanced attack. I think the Utah Utes are going to dominate on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage. I think their run game is going to be too much. I think the elevation is going to absolutely tear this ASU team apart, and we're going to see that heavily in the second half when these guys are going to be worn down. And they're not going to be coming out of their routes as strong. They're not going to be, challenging at the line of scrimmage as well. Everything is just going to be slowly, a slow drip, right, of just that defense, that offense, just their players in general being worn down by the elevation. It is a tough thing to play in. It is something that is really hard to adjust to. But for those reasons, I think Utah dominates this game. I really do. I have them winning this game 34-17. Once again, my final score is 34-17. I honestly think Utah can potentially win this game by even more. But that's where I have the score sitting at right now. Final score, Utah Utes win it in Salt Lake City, 34-17. With that being said, guys, appreciate you for listening. I've got one more matchup to cover. That's the Michigan versus Penn State game, as well as my upset alerts. But yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, stay prepared for the up and downs. Life is like a seesaw. Some say it's a bit